Bads, I know you, man. You love Jesus. I mean, there's nobody on the tour that is more passionate, more open about their faith than you. Talk about that progression, if you would.
Yeah, so going back to after I won that first Australian Open, and then I wanted to quit the game by September, so like 10 months later. And then my coach said, like, hey, write your goals down, you know? And that's when I got, and so I wrote down some golf goals, but then I also wrote some life goals. And wrote some, I don't remember what I wrote, but in the smallest writing that only I could read, I wrote that I wanted to have a strong relationship with the Lord. And so, and at that point, I would have called myself a Christian. Gave my heart to the Lord. For my whole life, I said 12, and about last year, I found out I was actually 9. I went through I found an old autograph book, and I was 9. So I've been lying this whole time. So, so I was actually 9 when I gave my heart to the Lord. So I would have called myself a Christian at that point, but I wouldn't say I had a strong relationship with the Lord. And then the following year, like I said, came back, played well in Australia, came back over here, didn't play well, but I was starting to walk more with the Lord. And
now, real quickly, was there a catalyst to that? Was there a person in your life?
Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so I'm playing at Whisper Rock, and it's in the middle of summer. We just started a new church back in Australia, and I met the pastor once. His name was Pastor Alan, and met him once. Hey, I'm going to America. I'll be back in 9 months. I'll see you when I get back. And so on the 8th hole there, I hook it in the desert. I mean, like I said, middle of summer, so there's no one out there, especially at this time. This is back in like 01, 02. It's just opened up. I'm walking around the desert, and I see my ball. I walk over, and there's 2 feet right in front. I'm like, who's that? I'm like, Alan, Pastor Alan. What are you doing here? It's like, g'day, mate. And I was like, what are you doing here? And he's like, oh, I was coming to check on you. But not really, no. He was just joking. But he was here doing some preaching, and he was playing golf, and he was going down another hole. And like, obviously a God moment. And he's like, there's something more about this. And he ended up taking me under his wing, and he was like my mentor, answering all the questions that like you think that are silly questions, but there really is no such thing as a silly question. Like one of the questions I had was like, why do we have to pray if God knows what we're going to say? I mean, you think it's a silly question, but it's a question you need answered, right? And so Alan was amazing at that. He taught me how to write. Like I write a lot now. That's one of it. It's been a huge thing for me, is writing. So Alan took me through for years, just going through stuff, how to study, how to write sermons. Anytime I was home, I'd be in classes up at church with him and these other leaders and stuff like that. And pretty much from that day on, it's just been a daily walk, just a commitment to daily just get up and spend time with the Lord, whether it's 15 minutes or 2 hours. Like, it's just a daily commitment. And it doesn't happen every day, but I would say it's most days. And I like to rise before my kids get up from when they get up, so that way I've got some quiet time. The kids know where I'm at. And yeah, so it's just been a daily walk.
Yeah. So you mentioned that was a God moment, and he'd kind of come over. He was speaking over here. As you look back over your journey, both your golf journey and your spiritual journey, would you say that God is orchestrating events and has been orchestrating events in your life? And do you see the providence of God in all this? Yeah,
I mean, so I play, like I keep my card on tour for, 15 years, 14, 13 years or something. And then in 2015, for whatever reason, I was stressed about keeping my card that year. And this is in April, so November's like the time is like the cutoff date. And I'm in April, and I was telling my coach at the time, Chris Como, and he's not a Christian, but I'd call him, he'd be spiritual, but he's not, I wouldn't call him a Christian. And I was like, man, I'm stressed about losing my card. And he just blank looked at me and says, well, you're not trusting God's plan for your life. I was like, wait, where did that come from? You know? And at that time, I would 100% said, I trust God's plan for my life, you know? But then at that point, I sat back, I remember that night and sort of thought about it. And I would say for the next 3 to 6 months, God really showed me that I didn't actually trust his plan for my life. And I needed to fully rest in what he had planned for me. And so that was April. I was stressed about losing my card. In 2015, I lost my card and I was at complete peace. It's
which makes no sense.
That makes no sense, right?
No, it makes no sense.
Like, you're stressed about what happened, what does actually happen, and you have complete peace about it. The only way you can talk about that is...
Can I share something with you? Bubba was playing a lot of golf with you back then, and he actually told me, he said, I don't get it. Aaron's struggling, and he just seems so calm and peaceful. So that's a cool testimony that he was picking up on that. I remember that.
I didn't know that.
Well, sometimes people can't see the grace that's in your life until you have to go through a situation where you've got to display grace, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
It's easy when you're winning every week.
Yeah.
It's only when you're, in a jumpsuit that you need to see, that's when you see people's grace, right?
Yeah. I mean, the Bible talks about a peace that surpasses all understanding.
All understanding. Right? And so you've experienced that.
And I love one of a pastor, his quote was saying, to have peace that surpasses understanding, sometimes you have to give up the understanding. So you might not understand what's happening. You might not know, but you get this peace that surpasses all what you can think about.
Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. And Jesus leaves and turns to his disciples and he says, my peace I leave with you.
Yeah.
My peace. In other words, I'm not so riveted on what's down here. I'm much more riveted on my Father's plans. And as a result, you get peace. I mean, you're just confident.